Welcome back to the Backcountry PA podcast. This one is with Matt Tagget from REK Broadheads. I don't think we ever really had a broadhead company on, and this was going to be interesting because this one we cover primarily mechanical broadheads. So we dive into REK, how it got started, why it got started, what led to then going into the mechanical broadhead route. So they do have one fixed head, but primarily we stick to the mechanical broadheads. We cover that. We talk about that a good amount, why it happened, and the process behind doing that, and made 100% in the U.S. here, out of Michigan, I believe. And we talk about we just talk about deer hunting and broadheads and archery hunting in general. We just talk about it all. It was a great conversation with Matt. Really hope that you enjoy the episode. Remember to go like, subscribe, give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. It really helps us. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate honest feedback as well. It's going to be interesting because this one here, we have mechanicals. And then the next episode after this, we have a fixed head company on. So I really wanted to, because for me personally, I'm looking at, I don't know what I'm going to shoot this year. I don't know if I'm going to go mechanical or if I'm going to go fixed head. I don't know yet. So I wanted to kind of just get two companies that are they're well respected, not like the massive ones that we always hear about, the ones that are in the big box stores. I mean, these two companies are in big box stores, but not as, I would say, not as well known or well used by the average everyday bow hunter nowadays. So these next two are really focused on archery hunting and, fixed versus mechanical. Not necessarily that they're competing against each other, but yet also you're going to shoot what you want to shoot no matter what. So we're not trying to sway you another way, but both of these companies here are American-made companies. And they're just good broadheads, it seems like. So I'm going to try and shoot both of them this year, see which one I like better. Hopefully I can shoot a doe or a buck with either one. It'd be pretty cool to do that. These companies really have no affiliation with us. They came on. I told them that, especially the fixed head company, I told them straight up, I was like, we had a mechanical broadhead company on, and I told them that was REK that we had on, and, they were fine with it. So Matt also, we even talk about it in the episode. We talk about how, you have all these mechanical and broadhead companies popping up now. And I asked him, I was like, does that kind of upset you, or, what have you? Like, there's even podcasts and YouTube channels, we talked about that a little bit too, how there's so many popping up. But now if you think about it, if you take a step back from it, it's good for the industry, it's good for the hunting community as well. And competition makes everyone work harder. It makes me work harder to put out better episodes or put out better videos or be the best I can be and put out the best content I can, because I think that's what makes you stand out up from all the rest. So I really hope you enjoy this episode with Matt. Go check out REK Broadheads. You can just find them anywhere. They're in a bunch of local shops around me too. So, I mean, they're getting out there pretty well. But stay tuned for next week, because we have another broadhead company on there. If you're more into the fixed heads, that one is also a really good conversation. But I'm going back to pretty much every week now, because I have so many saved up. After these next three, then the Woodsmanship series will be dropping, because I didn't really plan on having this many saved up. So we're going to be pushing it back, and probably going to be beginning of August that the Woodsmanship series will be coming out. End of July, beginning of August timeframe will be coming out. So in that way, it will lead right up to September openers in some states. So really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. See you. It's a rough day, but it's better than the outdoor show. Doing that for 9 days.
Oh, geez, Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we've never done that, but we've contemplated it, and it's just we would have to bring in 3 crews of guys to work it, because I don't even know that, how many days we'd be good for. That's a lot.
But if you're a small brand and you don't have the staffing to do 9 days of rotation, you guaranteed you're going to be sick by the end of that thing, because it's
what everybody says. Yeah.
Yeah. I got sick, and I just went for 3 days,
It's right at that time of year, you know. I mean, show season never fails. Seems like wherever you end up in February or March or any time around there, you're going to end up sick.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's not, at least it's not during, like, I also feel like it's at a perfect time too, because you have, like, you go through the whole season, you know, you're ramped up, then you have that little bit of off season. Like our season here in PA ends January 18th.
okay.
Day of or day after MLK Day?
It's the day of Martin Luther King Day,
Usually it's, yeah.
because that's the last day I go out usually with a flintlock.
Mm-hmm.
And and
squirrel goes to off February.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a me thing. I'm out in the woods in February with a shotgun trying to find some squirrels.
I'm pretty much scouting with my flintlock because my flintlock never goes off.
Oh.
So, once again, it's still loaded.
Yep.
2.5 years still loaded.
One day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. It's in the gun safe, loaded.
Yep.
It gets damp one time and then just never wants to go off. Matt, how about, because you have not been on this podcast yet, but I've heard you on a few podcasts before, but introduce yourself and the brand and all that kind of good stuff. How it came about.
So I'm Matt Tagget. I'm co-founder of REK Broadheads. We're a father and son owned business. My dad and I created this. We started working on it in 2018. My dad, he's been a tool and die maker, machinist, engineer, all that for, 40 some years. He's retired from the shop now, but and him and I live and breathe bow hunting. And in the past, I had done some filming hunts and stuff. I helped create a pretty popular web channel for a while there, and I was really involved kind of in the marketing and video side of things. And growing up with my dad being a machinist, I always kind of had that knack of trying to work on things, trying to figure out how things were made, how it works. He had a shop set up at his house also. And we just we live and breathe bow hunting, and we've shot every broadhead under the sun. We've shot every one of them, fixed, expandable, you name it. And over the years, we just we saw a lot of flaws in broadheads, mostly mechanical broadheads. And with his background in manufacturing and my background in marketing, I thought that, hey, this is kind of the perfect combination for us to come together and see if we can't work out some of the flaws in the expandable broadhead and bring it to market. It really for us was about making the product better. That was kind of our goal. We had experienced some failures, and we wanted a broadhead that wouldn't fail. So in 2018, we went to the drawing board and come up with a few different ideas. I think we had 3 or 4 different designs for a mechanical head. And it took us maybe 3 or 4 months to actually have something that worked and performed. And by later in the year of 2018, we went out and shot our first deer with the mechanical broadhead. And it was funny because those blades were actually lasered out of a Stanley utility blade knife. That's a razor blade, and that's what we lasered the blades out of, just for a prototype. And the first deer I killed with a REK broadhead was with those blades, so it's kind of funny. But we're bow hunters just like everybody else, and we love it, and we really like to innovate products. We love seeing the innovation in the industry, and wanted to put our own twist on the broadhead market. We take a lot of pride in American manufacturing, and we wanted to make our products right here and make a run at it with the big boys. So here we are.
Yeah. So before 2018, you're doing your own stuff. You're doing the media stuff, and building that company up, and your dad's working in a shop. We don't have to drop names, but like, what flaws did you see in like the broadheads? Because I know there's always people that say like, fixed blades, no one should shoot expandables. No one should shoot expandables because they fail and all that kind of stuff. But like, I've shot expandables. My dad shot expandables his whole life. I mean, he's shot numerous deer. I've shot one deer with the bow.
Yeah.
But like, what did you see? What was like that ticking time bomb? Like, okay, we got to make our own stuff. Like, what kind of was it?
I guess there was a few different things, and it's pretty typical of what you would hear for somebody that's had a bad experience with an expandable broadhead. Either the blades did not deploy, some people say the blades don't deploy or deploy in flight and throws the flight off. I never actually experienced that, but I did have some broadheads where the blades did not open on impact. And then one of the biggest things for me was, mechanical broadheads just seemed to be built so weak, and they would hit bone and they would lose a blade, or they would just kind of crumble and fall apart. We wanted to build a broadhead that would actually punch through bone and keep cutting and keep going. So we beefed up the materials on ours, as you'll see. That was big for us. And then another thing that became frustrating is one particular mechanical broadhead, quite a popular broadhead. I had some success with it, but I also had a handful of times when this broadhead hit bone, and even just a rib, and just straight up deflected off the animal. And to me, that was just unacceptable. And I knew we could do something a little better. So I think those were kind of some of the common issues, blade deployment, basically being throwaway heads that blades blew apart, blew to pieces. I remember there was a hot new broadhead out. This was, oh gosh, what year was this? I'm just going to say maybe in the 2010 timeframe, somewhere in there. They were the hot new broadhead on the market. So went down, picked up a 3-pack of them, and shot all 3 of them into a foam block target, just a foam layered target.
Mm-hmm.
And the blades on those broadheads fell apart on each three head in the foam target. And I was just like, this is ridiculous, And at the time, I don't know, broadheads were probably $45 for a 3-pack. So regardless, it's just it just to me was unacceptable.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I have also always kind of been told, right? Is like, when you have those expandable broadheads, you don't want to take practice shots with them because of that situation right there, where it's like you're going to possibly ruin the head. So yours, would you say, REK, like you could shoot into a target and still reuse that broadhead?
And that was the goal, is to be able to reuse them. And a lot of people don't reuse their expandables. I never did, even before I owned a REK, but just to see it go through and hold together was big for us. So we wanted to be able to have that reusability, but basically meaning that it goes through and the edge is still sharp. The blades are not bent, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that everyone, like, they want that, because like you said, like, broadheads are they're expensive, and we want to reuse them. We want to, like, if we shoot one deer, we want to be able to shoot another deer with that broadhead, because it's like, you look at it, it's like, okay, they're sharp, it looks good, I'm gonna put it back on, gonna fix the one piece that holds the blades back in, and go about my business again, go hunting again, and possibly shoot another doe or a buck, or go out of state and shoot another deer with that. Like, that's something people really look for now, because things are getting expensive, and like, you want to save money where you can.
Yeah. Is there like a right way to resharpen a blade? Because like, I haven't shot a lot of deer in my life, but the ones that I have shot, I've never reused blade. Like, and obviously, if I keep going the trend that I am going, I'm going to be shooting some more deer.
$2 a year?
$2 a year, right? One in each state. I'm trying. But
the grand slam of $50.
$50. Oh my God. But like, is there like I don't know, because I would feel some type of way about like this arrow, or this broadhead. So we're talking about broadhead. This broadhead literally went through a deer and into the ground. It might have hit a rock. Now, obviously, you want to make sure the blades are straight and everything, but like, I don't know, something about it makes me like, I don't want to reuse a broadhead that I've already shot through an animal that hit the ground and maybe hit a rock or whatever. But is there a proper way to resharpen them that's like you'll be fine?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and like I mentioned before, I owned a broadhead company. I was never one to reuse a broadhead. Just for the fact that it's yes, they're expensive, but at the same time, I guess I shouldn't say to reuse a broadhead. When I was out, just doing some doe management, shooting some does and stuff like that on the farm, I would basically shoot a broadhead till it fell apart, But if I'm going out to harvest if there's like one buck I'm targeting all year, and I just want to make sure everything's just perfect. I don't want to be using a broadhead that might be a little duller or something of the sort. But to your point of sharpening, there are some guys out there that are really good at sharpening um, broadheads and blades and whatnot. And there's some tools and accessories out there designed to help with that process. But what I've seen in my experience with building broadheads is that you can't get back to the factory edge, at least to the factory edge that we offer. Because if you look at our blades and the angle, the grind on that underneath a microscope, there's going to be the main obvious edge, that you can see with the naked eye. But under a microscope, if you look, there's actually another edge on there. It's a really small relief edge, and what that does is when you sharpen blades, there's a burr that bends over on one side or the other, depending on which side you're grinding. And it burrs over and actually dulls the blade slightly, so that relief edge on each side comes through and takes that burr off. Now that's really hard to accomplish by hand. So, like I mentioned, there's some guys that are really good at sharpening and stuff, but I really believe it's hard to get back to that factory edge from what the machines can produce.
Yeah, I think, fixed blades are the better. Like if you want to reuse them, like keep reusing them, I feel like fixed blades are like 100% the way to go. Kind of no matter what you're shooting, fixed blades are like, but I'm terrible at fixed blades. Like
Yeah.
I have terrible luck with fixed blades so much. Like my arrow goes like I'm dead nuts with a field tip. I put that fixed blade on, I'm wide left, and I'm like, how do I get this thing back over here?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to move my sight back, and then I put the field points back on, and then I'm way off because I adjusted for the fixed head.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I think that's why people like expandables so much, and that's never going to die. Expandables are never going to die because of that, because they shoot the same as a field point, like almost every one.
Yeah, and that's exactly why they were designed back in the day. That was, and that still remains the main takeaway from an expandable. You're able to achieve a much larger cut on the animal, but in flight, as it's a smaller profile, it's going to fly better. That's never going to go away. And there's a lot of good expandables on the market now. Technology is come so far, and the ideas, and just to see the progression of the mechanical head from the very beginning, they've come a long way. There's a lot of really good heads on the market, and there's still a few that I'm a little leery of, but yeah, that's I'm an expandable guy myself.
Yeah.
I do shoot our fixed head a little here and there.
Mhm.
It's if you're looking at something that's absolutely indestructible, a fixed head's going to be, that's there's no chance of failure there. And with our expandables, I feel like we really took a lot of the chance for failure out of the equation. That was another one of our goals here, to make it as simple as possible. But let's be honest, any company that tells you that their expandable head cannot fail or will not ever fail, would be a lie. That if there's moving parts, there's always the risk for something to go wrong. I think we've made it a very simple design that takes that percentage and really just drops it down. But moving parts, you always risk something. So that's where the fixed guys, really um, like no moving parts.
I think that's exact same thing as hunting in general. Like when you have deer who have their own mind, we can scout as much as we want, but it doesn't matter if we like find the scrape, find his bed, find the feeding. If he wakes up one morning and decides to go right instead of left, that's because that's his own decision. Now, when you have moving parts in an expandable, like you said, there's risk that comes with that. No matter what expandable you're shooting, there's a risk that comes with it. But if one broadhead or one company seems to fail more than us, like then there's something that's more at risk there with their broadheads.
We're hunters, and we're harder on our gear. We hunt out in the elements, rain, snow, hail, you name it. We're out there, and just anything could go wrong at any point in time with any part of your gear. So it's definitely our job as hunters to do our homework and find the equipment that has the least amount of failure. I'm not saying I don't think that you can ever get that to a 0%, but just do your homework and figure out what's working for other people.
Now I want to go back to this because like this could be a hard question to answer or a hard thing to talk about. Like, so you said there's more broadhead companies popping up all the time. As a broadhead company yourself, how does that make, like, does it worry you? Does it excite you? Does it, like, what goes through your mind when you see, like, oh, another broadhead company pop up? Like, what goes through your mind?
Honestly, I think it's pretty cool for the most part. I mean, obviously our goal is to continue to build kick-ass broadheads and, just kind of keep growing REK as a brand and as a company. But on the other side of things, just to see the archery industry grow and new brands come with new ideas and bring new stuff to the market, that's awesome. It shows that our industry is alive and well. People are sticking money into the industry. They're investing in a new business, a new product, new ideas, and it really, I like innovation. I think it's great to see some of the new stuff coming out. I don't necessarily always agree with all the technology that I see out of some new heads on the market, but I give everybody props for trying. There is a lot of broadheads on the market, and it's a very tough. It's right there probably with fishing lures. You walk into a store and the whole wall is just covered in broadheads. So it's there's a lot of them out there, and you've really got to make yourself stand out to stay afloat, in the broadhead category. A lot of companies do it a lot of different ways. They either pump a ton of money behind it in marketing, or they rely on the product to speak for itself, and or they come up with some new crazy innovation. And it's I like the innovation. I like the competition. I like seeing new ideas, and I'm all for it.
I think that is one thing. Like, because if it was only, like, say 5 brands of broadheads, right, you wouldn't really necessarily feel that competition. You would kind of feel like maybe would stay stagnant. You wouldn't want to try and improve something because, like, okay, our broadhead's doing good right now. We shouldn't try and improve anything because there's only 4 other companies plus us, so there's 5. Why would we need to try and improve when we're doing good right now? We're beating the other competition, all that kind of stuff. Like, when you have that competition, it's when you look at it as someone who creates stuff and, like, builds stuff, it's like, man, it kind of in the back of your mind, it's like, man, it sucks. It sucks to see that, but then also in the competitive side of things, it's like, okay, now I have to outdo one more person, and I have to beat them out to be better, stay where I'm at right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. To stay relevant, you've got to constantly be, um, developing new product, new ideas, and every year there's something new comes out, and it just gets better and better. And at the end of the day, it's not about us as a manufacturer. It's about our customers as a hunter. It's about giving the hunter, the customer, the best product that we can possibly make for when they're out there on their hunt at full draw. They don't have a doubt in their mind that the equipment they chose is going to work for them. So, it's all good competition, and I think it's great for the industry to see all this new hot technology and ideas hit the market, and yeah, it's really cool. I'm excited to see where it goes in the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Would that be nice? But I mean, even as a consumer, it's nice to have all those options because, like, I have no loyalty to any specific brand of broadhead. I've used several. Or
you wore a duck jacket out hunting.
I wore a duck jacket. I mean, come on, like that tells you everything you need to know about me. Right? Like, I don't, but like, because I've used the just 3-blade blackout. I've used them, just this one solid piece. I've used what's the other one? I don't remember. It's got like a point, and it's got 4 blades
Grim
behind
Reaper.
it. Grim Reaper. I've used one expandable, and I don't remember the name of the brand. I've killed a doe with it, but I don't remember the name of the brand on that one. But I've used all these different ones, and it's like, all right, let me just. Now it's different for me. Thanks. It's different for me though, because, like, I shoot a crossbow, so I know everything flies a little differently than someone that shoots a compound So usually I stick with like a fixed blade. I've shot expandable one time, worked fine. That would be because everyone talks about like, oh, expandables are superior to fixed blade. At least that's what I see. But I'm always afraid having a crossbow with such force that bolt flies off. The second it releases, I'm thinking that's going to expand mid-flight. So I was like, do you guys have something that's good for a crossbow? Like you trust it enough to be like, yeah, you can throw this expandable in there and have no problems.
So we do crossbow rate all of our heads, and we test them out of crossbows. They're universal compound and crossbow rated, but we rate them to 450 feet per second. That's what we've tested them to, and we're confident. We've put them through a wide variety of tests to make sure that blades aren't going to jolt open on the release of the bolt. But these crossbows, as we talk about technology and equipment, it just keeps getting better and better. Crossbows just keep getting faster and faster, and it's to the point now where, our broadheads that we have out now are all an aluminum ferrule, which works pretty well up to 450 feet per second. But once you get up to that 500 feet per second, you should be shooting a steel or a titanium ferrule, because they're just getting so fast, and that's as the crossbows continue to get faster and faster. I mean, it's going to have to really, we're kind of at that threshold right now. The 450 to 500 feet per second for what's on the market can really just about, most of the heads can handle that. But once we start getting much over that 500 feet per second range, there's going to have to be some really new and unique ideas to accommodate for that, I believe.
So with that question, let's say a broadhead in general, let's say a broadhead expands when it comes out, you hit a twig and the broadhead expands because you hit that twig with the broadhead. With the crossbow, if it comes out that fast, like say it's 600 feet per second, which is insanely quick.
Which is
that's
what you've done at this point.
yeah, might as well. But if it expands, how much will that throw off the crossbow bolt in that situation? Like, would it really like waver? Because like I'm still not very
or does it
archery
just
stuff.
fly like a fixed blade at that point? Because it looks like one just expanded at that point.
So out of a crossbow, I couldn't say for sure. There's a lot of variables there depending on where the bolt lands in the bow itself, and where the blades would deploy. If the blades deploy when they're out and away from the bow, it could still cause some flight inconsistencies, or if it deploys on the initial jolt and a blade smacks out and hits the rest or something like that, you could run into some definite issues there. Just for the heck of it, last fall I deployed my expandables, our REK expandables, and I shot them with no collar on it just to see, and to my surprise they were actually still hitting really close to them in the deployed or the stored position. I was expecting them to completely, do like a 180. Now, I think where you see inconsistent flight patterns with an expandable is when one blade flops open in flight and the other stays fixed. Then it really throws it off. But if they're both open, as I shot them, I didn't notice a ton of difference, oddly enough, but that is a lot more material just out there flopping in the wind, though. So, it's it's always best to have them in the closed position.
Yeah. We really recommend closing your expandables when you're knocked or bolted up. I don't know what the proper.
We're gonna coin it. We're gonna bolt it up. If it's not one, bolt it up.
Bolt up. But I had an experience this past season with like the arrow did not go through the buck completely and it backed out. And I think it's because the hole that I was shooting through was like this big. And from my eye, I double tapped obviously the record button. So I don't know exactly what happened when I shot the deer.
Lessons learned.
There are many lessons learned in that hunt. But like the arrow backed out, and I don't know if maybe the broadhead expanded before it got to him or what, and it backed out. Like he would bled pretty good, but it backed out. And then I think when they open up like that, there's a lot of drag that comes out. So like your feet per second really slows down. Like you can go from a bow that's 300 feet per second to all of a sudden you're down to like maybe below 200 feet per second because that drag, I imagine. Like I'm no scientist with that, but I mean, it could cause a lot of drag.
Yeah, and that's, even when, the expandable contacts the animal, that's that's the classic fixed and expandable debate, that it requires, or it eats up kinetic energy to deploy blades. You don't have that with a fixed head, so you're always going to get better penetration with a fixed head. Expandable takes a little bit of force to open that up, but I guess in my personal experiences and whatnot, I've always just found, I shoot a 29-inch draw, 70-pound bow. I think my arrows are right in that 440, high 440 grain. I've, as far as whitetail, I've never had an issue zipping through whitetail, and so I've never really worried too much about penetration, I guess. But for somebody shooting a lower poundage or less of a draw, shorter arrow, I think that's where a fixed head would probably benefit those kind of people. But no, I absolutely see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean that's a 2-inch blade flying through the air. That's a lot.
Yeah. And so you shoot a 29-inch draw. That's the same thing that I have for my bow. My bow is at 68. I have a 300 grain, this 300 spine gold tip arrow. I was shooting 100 grain broadhead last year. I think I'm going to bump up to 125. Would you recommend, because I don't think there was enough punch behind the arrow when it went into this deer, whether it was slowed down, whatever. I don't think there was enough punch going into this deer with my arrow setup. Would you recommend bumping up the weight of my arrow, like from a 300 spine to something else, or going down, or what would you recommend? Because I'm still like, this is my 4th year bow hunting, 4th year, and that's the first deer like I really truly shot at and make contact with. So like I'm still in the learning process. Like all these deer in the studio right now are shot with a rifle. So like I'm still trying to get that first deer with
Archery,
a bow.
yeah.
Well, I have a crossbow buck.
Yeah.
Crossbow doe, but like it's a lot different with a compound. So like what in your mind, what would you recommend? Because this is something that I want to talk about in this episode, because I'm going in the next year like planning to kill a freaking monster, because I have a lot of intel on this guy.
Yeah. Man, there is so much you can do with arrow setups. And if you go down that whole FOC rabbit hole and whatnot, I mean, some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't make sense. If you watch YouTube videos, you end up just scratching your head wondering what you should be doing. I don't know that 25 grains necessarily is going to make a ton of difference in penetration. If you're looking to maybe fine tune, depending on what the spine of your arrow and stuff, 25 grain might affect flight a little more. You might be able to hold a little truer depending on the setup and stuff. But I think if you're really gonna try to bulk up your arrow for to hit the animal harder, you're gonna want to go more in that 50 to 75 grain up front, depending on where everything falls in. With some weighted outserts, some heavier broadheads and whatnot. But myself personally, I've always just shot a very, very middle of the road average setup. And man, I've killed a lot of deer, a lot of deer, and I'm trying to recall one that I didn't at least poke through the other side of it. And man, I can't think of one. I mean, I normally zip right through them. So yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, my arrow is it's 446 grain maybe. I'm shooting 29-inch draw, 70-pound bow, and yeah, I'll put that big 2-inch expandable right clean through them, like, and it keeps going. So that's one rabbit hole I've never really dove fully into. I just I've always just shot a very average setup, and it's worked for me. So I've really not had a reason to switch, I suppose. But man, there's endless options out there.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing it was like I went to the art shop because I still don't know, and I might get some heat for this because like you're hosting a podcast and you don't know like all the stuff about bow and arrows and arrow setups and all this kind of like. But like I went in the art shop, like I want a 350 grain or 350 spined arrow. I shoot a gold tip. I want to have a heavier arrow, and the guy's like, "Oh, well, you actually want a 300 then?" I was like, "Oh, okay." So I guess I want a 300 then. Me thinking that I was shooting 350s at home here, I've actually been shooting 300. So it's like, now it's like, I don't think there's anything bigger than that. I don't think there's anything like thicker than that. And I don't really want to go thicker than that, to be honest. Like I'd rather go like something else. Like I think, more speed would probably be better too. Like it might pack more of a punch. Like I don't know. There's just a lot I need to try out, I think, before obviously the season comes because I need to get dialed in.
Yeah, I got to start shooting. Like, what does the weight actually do? Like the broadhead, like you have like 100 grain, 125. What's they have like 175s,
I think they have
150s?
175. Yeah.
Like, what is that really all it does? Is just how much of a punch that it gives through, or what's it actually do?
So it's kind of a mixed bag there. I mean, there's people shoot a heavier tip for a few different reasons. One of that being trying to balance out and get a better flight, depending on the spine of the arrow, and then also to put more weight on the arrow up front to in theory drive deeper through the animal. Now there's some studies out there. If you ever get a chance to look up Joel Maxfield, he has done some stuff with Matthews, and he goes very in depth on some tests as far as speed versus weight in relation to penetration, and there's a fine line there on going too heavy with your arrow versus having speed with a light arrow. And yeah, I'm not sure I fully buy into the whole heavy arrow setup thing. I think I like a fast arrow, not necessarily a super light arrow, but I like to be able to poke out 60 yards and not have a ton of drop if I don't, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't gone fully down that rabbit hole. The setup I've shot is always just worked great for whitetail. I've never really gone and shot anything over in Africa or anything like that. I think that's maybe where I would step up to a real heavy setup. The animals over there are quite a bit thicker skinned than whitetail, but it really doesn't take much to kill a whitetail. You just shoot. I had my fiance last year. She shoots 45 pounds. I forget her draw off the top of my head. She has a pretty short draw, and we stepped her up to the expandables last fall just to see how they did. She was shooting the fixed heads, killed a couple deer. Well, she started zipping through deer with the expandables at 45 pounds. I mean, it's granted they're not 200-pound big old rutted up bucks, but just shooting does and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's there's endless options. Sometimes I think a little too much thought goes into the whole process. Like I said, you get watching YouTube videos, you could spend hours and days and weeks watching about different setups, and at the end of the day, you just got to get out there and hunt and use what works for you.
And I could 100% be thinking way too much about it. But like,
don't we all?
When you have like the encounter, you have you think you put a good shot on a deer, you track good blood for like 80 yards and all this kind of stuff, and like you find out he's still alive. It's like, man, like now I got to change my whole setup just because it didn't pass through, did not knock this deer down. Now, it could have went through and it could have hit just a void area where it didn't hit anything serious. They could have, like, who knows? But like, could have been the broadhead too. When I was looking at the one broadhead compared to the other broadhead I bought, I was like, there's a size difference here.
Yeah.
In these arrows. So it's like it could have the broadhead. So it's like it could have been like I was shooting G5s. G5 mega meats. And then I got, so the G5 mega meat, it was on discount at Lancaster Archery. So I bought it. And then there was a G5 mega meat version 2.
Oh yeah.
That I bought. And like the size difference between them was like, there's a drastic size difference between these two. And I'm like, that could have been why. Because a smaller broadhead like that could have affected it. And expandables Maybe it didn't open. Maybe it didn't. Who knows? It's just one of those things. You never know.
Yeah, it's I think we've all had those experiences where you hit a deer and you don't find it, and you run through your head the whole scenario over and over and over again, wondering, was it this, was it that, and it'll keep you up at night. But that's the nature of the beast, and we try to limit um, those bad experiences as much as possible. But it's hunting, and it happens. Anybody that tells you they've never lost a deer either hasn't been hunting that long, or they're lying to you. So unfortunately it happens, and it's not fun.
No, well, it's never going to happen again. So
knock on wood while you're at it.
So we did not talk about the broadheads at all yet, of which ones you have for REK. So let's talk we talked a lot about expandables. Let's dive in the expandables, the cut. So the XP first, and then like the HXP is a new one, right, this year.
Well, that was actually new for last year. 2024. Yep. Okay. And so they're nearly the same broadhead. The difference is the cutting diameter. The XP was the original, and that was the first expandable that we started working on, back in 2018. Now that is an 1.850, right around 1 7/8 cut on that. It's a rear deploy. So we do get a slap cut on impact with that. So even though it's 1 7/8, I call it a resting cut when the blades are fully deployed in the resting position. You actually do get it with that about a 2 1/4 inch entry. When that thing slaps the animal and lets loose, you get a bigger entry wound being a rear deploy than you would, I guess, like an over the top or front opening expandable. Now the HXP is the XP's big brother. It's a 2 1/4 inch expandable. Rear deploy. With this thing, we're seeing entry wounds nearing close to 3 inches. It's an absolutely devastating head. All of our blades are 39 thousandths thick. That was a goal of ours, to take the expandable broadhead and beef it up, make it hold up to bone, hard impacts, punch through shoulders. So you'll notice they've got that big beefy chisel tip. That's a 416 stainless steel chisel tip on that. And then it's a 7075 aluminum ferrule, 39 thousandths thick blaze, and that's across our entire broadhead lineup. It's just really a really stout, beefed up looking broadhead.
Okay. Yeah, and then I also noticed that there's your blades are vented as well.
They are, and the reason for that is mostly just to reach the 100 grain weight mark. Those vents are just for weight reduction.
Okay.
And that's always, when you're designing a new broadhead, that's always the hard part is, we could build the strongest broadhead in the world, but it's probably going to weigh 300 grains, but you're trying to build one at 100 grain, the 100 grain mark, and make it as strong as you can with only 100 grains of material. You've got there's give and take, and you got to find that right combination.
Yeah, I watched your video on the vented to see how much the noise was, because I think that's one thing that people look at, like, oh, it's vented, like that could cause some noise and spook the deer off before it even gets there. And the test was actually very informative and very detailed. But like, you shot with the field point first, then you shot with them the broadheads, and it was pretty cool to see that the sound did not really change that much.
No, it didn't. And honestly, that test surprised us. We made that test off from a few Facebook and Instagram comments and messages and stuff. That I think that's people see vented blades, and they say they've had issues with vented blade broadheads whistling, making a lot of noise downrange. And I'm not sure, what models do that. Even if I did know, I obviously wouldn't say it on the air, but I'm not exactly sure which broadheads are making that noise. But apparently there's people out there that have experienced this, and it's an issue. So I said, hey, let's make a test. Let's put it out there. We shot everything past the sound meter with a broadhead on it, and everything passed it with a field point. And the results were pretty interesting. Our heads are ever so slightly louder than a field point, but I mean, we're talking like like decimals. It's not a lot. So yeah, then we did test some competing heads just to
Mm-hmm.
see where we landed, and there is a difference in
Yeah.
some heads. You know, I still didn't get the whistling effect out of anything that we tested, obviously from our brand or from others, but
Mm-hmm.
just the actual force of the broadhead cutting through the air. There are some out there that are louder.
Yeah. And I
So
think the one was even your one broadhead was even less than the
it
field point.
it was, and that's what absolutely blew our mind with that test. I think it was actually was it the I'm pretty sure it was the FX4, the fixed head.
Mm-hmm.
That left us kind of mind boggled. It didn't make any sense. So we did it again, and we did it again and again, and it was the same result every time. So what that reason is, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that, but all I did is we tested it, we relayed the info the way we saw it, and people can make their judgments off from that. But it was a very eye opening, neat test that we did there.
Mm-hmm. And what weights do they come in? The XP and HXP.
So we have them in 100 and 125 grain.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Now the one I'm interested in, because like I want to see how it would possibly fly compared to a field point, is the fixed blade you have, the FX4. Just
Yep.
want to make sure I said it right. Yep, FX4. So what in comparison to a field point, how does that fly?
Man, so when we travel around and go to trade shows, and people ask me that question, that's the question you get when you're
Mm-hmm.
selling a fixed head. I tell everybody the same thing. If this thing doesn't fly true for you, give me a call. I'll give you your money back. I have not seen it yet where that field point or that FX4 has not flown true to a field point with a bow that has a proper tune. If your
Okay.
bow isn't shooting right, there's really not a lot we could do for that. But that was big for us when designing the FX4, is we wanted a fixed head that you could pull your field points off, screw this broadhead on, and go hunting and not have to mess with anything. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
change your rest, your sight, nothing. You're ready to go hunting. And it took quite a few different variations, mostly of the blade diameters on that FX4 to get it to fly the way we wanted it, and the overall length of the ferrule. It's a pretty short, stout broadhead. It does have an 1 1/8 main blade and a 3/4 inch bleeder on it, so it still has a fairly sizable cut. Pretty average for a fixed head. But the low profile of it is what makes it fly so well, and we get complimented on that head over and over and over again on just how well it flies.
When did that one come out? When did you come up with that one?
I believe we launched that in 2022.
Okay. Is there, because I know, like, obviously when we talk about competition, right? It's like once something's working, you're not going to try and fix it or up yourself. Is there any thoughts of like making another fixed head?
Yeah, we we're always working on something. And we have some different variations of the FX4 that we might release down the road. Right now, we've been tackling a new expandable project. We've been working on it for quite some time, and it's honestly it, it's I'm really excited to launch the new models that we have coming out, and it's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of scrapped prototypes, and a lot of navigating around other patents and stuff like that. So to finally have this project nearing completion, we're pretty excited for. But back to your question there on a different fixed head, yeah, we're always looking at something. We have a few different ideas of what we want to do. We get asked a lot for a 3 blade, so we're looking at all the popular demands of the consumers, and I'm sure before too long you'll see some more fixed heads from us.
Cool.
Sweet. Could you go wider? Because like at some point, I feel like what, 1 1/8 is like standard for a fixed blade.
Yep.
Like if you keep going wider, is that when it starts to give you problems when it goes from you go from field point to fixed?
Yep, that's exactly it. And and that's why expandables were created. Essentially, people that we all want that big cut.
Mhm.
That's what we want. But to achieve that out of a fixed head without giving up too much accuracy is really hard to do, and that's why we settled on that 1.125" with that FX4. It was really consistent for us, flew really well. Do I want a larger cut expand or fixed head? Yes, I do. It's that's going to be a tricky one for sure. I'm confident we can, get something out there with a bigger cut, and that's kind of what we're working on. But yeah, the bigger than blades are, you start to see some planing and stuff like that, and yeah, that's why I like my expandables, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why the airplane's wings are so wide, right? Because then they can fly up in the air. That's what's going to happen if you go out too far. All of a sudden, you're just going to have that rise.
Just shooting right over top of every deer. You shoot at the ground, it might hit the deer by the time it gets there.
Well, I mean, the one that I shot out in at Mike's place, PA Plotters, it went right underneath because, I mean, I don't know why that one happened.
What, did you use the wrong pin?
I might have.
I think you did on that
one.
Yeah, that was a user error.
That was yeah. Most of my mistakes are user error.
Yeah.
I don't blame the equipment. I blame myself.
Yeah, that's fair. Because like I noticed
to do that. Yep.
Because like I even noticed like when I would shoot a deer with the fixed, I don't get a lot of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't like even now. Ohio was a little different. That was a whole different scenario. It wasn't the best shot. I recovered the deer
10 yards in front of you.
It's 10 yards in front of me, and I was like, the angle is really kind of screwy here. But we recovered it the next day. But even the Pennsylvania buck, he was. I mean, that was perfect broadside straight through the heart. Granted, I didn't really need to track him because I watched him drop, and I was like, he's right there. But like even walking up to him, all of the blood was really where he was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a lot of splattered like on the fern or nothing. That's like that's a concern, I guess you'd say. Like say like I shoot one again and it runs out of sight. I'm gonna like you need that blood trail to follow him. So I guess that's where that longer cut is for the expandables comes in. You're gonna get a better blood trail.
Exactly. And we see that with our FX4, our fixed head too. The blood trails typically are not what we see out of an expandable. It's an 1.125" hole versus a 2 1/4 to almost a 3-inch hole on entry with the HXP. I mean, it's the blood loss with the HXP is catastrophic. I mean, it's something to see, honestly. Now the FX4 gets much better penetration. If you're going to if you're shooting low poundage or you're going to hunt a moose or elk or something like that, I'm going to recommend the FX4. I had a good buddy of mine. He went, I think it was 2 years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago. He went to Montana on an elk hunt with his bow. He was taking the FX4s, and he had a big bull, big, I think it was a 6x6, 38 yards, I want to say, facing him, full draw. Waiting for the bull to turn broadside, wouldn't turn broadside, so he just let it rip right in the chest, basically. That FX4 drove clean through the entire elk, went out the other side and kept going. He never found his arrow.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know. What are you talking? You got to be 7 foot of animal there.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
That FX4 is an absolute ripper. Blood trails, like I said, are hit or miss with it. I've seen really good blood trails out of the FX4, and I've seen some marginal blood trails out of the FX4. But one thing I can guarantee with the FX4 is it's going to fly true, and it's going to bust through bone, and you're going to take that thing out, and you're going to rinse it off in the sink, and you're going to go hunting with it again because you can't not destroy that broadhead.
Yeah, that's one thing I do like about I like the idea of a fixed head. It's like going out there, reusing it, and also, but the one thing obviously with the blood trail, right? But like if you have that penetration, you have that guarantee to go through bone and hit through bone and break the bone and go through there. The deer is most likely you just have to use your woodsmanship skills and track a little better until you find that good blood, and then you can, depending on, unless it had PA where it's like you watch them drop.
Yeah, I got lucky on that one. I was like, oh, there he is.
Right
there. Yep.
One perfect shot doesn't matter.
That is true. It wasn't perfect. That was the best, damn near best shot I've ever made in my life. Let me tell you.
It was very good.
I don't know if I can duplicate that. I don't know.
It was a very good shot. Very good shot. I was like, that's the entrance? My goodness.
Exactly. Straight hard shot. I do want to try it expandable, with the crossbow at some point, just to see like how it works out.
Compared, yeah.
Kind of compare them, because like I said, like I don't want to run into that situation if I can help it, where I made a good shot, or I think I made a good shot, and trying to find blood is a nightmare because they don't want to bleed the way I thought they should be bleeding. So I want to eliminate that. What'd you say? 2.5, 2.25 inch cut. That sounds quite appealing.
Yeah, it's a massive hole, and it's saved my ass a few times. I try to be the best shot of that I can be. And I try to target practice throughout the summer. My days just continue to get busier and busier, so I don't necessarily get as much target practicing time in as I'd like anymore. And that kind of sucks. But where I'm going with this is I'm not always the best shot. So I've made some marginal shots in the expandable. It's saved me more than once, more than I'd like to admit, to where you hit them a little far back, and I would much rather have that 2.25 inch hole going through the guts than 1.125 inches. That's where it definitely it could make or break a good hunt for you. But then again, it's just the debate never ends, and I think that's why I carry both fixed and expandable in my quiver at all times. I always have both, because the FX4, if a big old buck comes in and he's quartered to you a little bit, that FX4, I've got no hesitation to punch him, on the front side of the shoulder with that thing, and I know it's going to bury into him. Because it is a smaller cut, and it's going to penetrate better, and nothing's going to break on that head. That head is so tough. I can't even. Actually, there's a guy has been posting videos of it over the last few weeks where he's been shooting the same FX4 into like cement blocks and cast iron skillets and stuff. I think he's shot into a cast iron skillet 3 times now. The same head.
Oh my gosh.
Which there's a handful of fixed heads out there that will do that, but in the $50 range for 3, not a whole lot. Most of the heads that you're gonna get that kind of quality and dependability out of, you're spending over $100 for 3 of them.
Yeah. I've looked at some of them. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna. Nope, not gonna do that, because I don't even know if it'll fly with my bow. So I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, the HXP, that's like, that cut is like even a blind man can follow that blood trail. It seems like.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I have a chance then.
Yeah, she is right there.
Oh my. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a nasty one. Yeah. Yep.
Looking at your broadheads or whatever, like, what would you recommend them start out with? And any advice you give them?
I think make your decisions for yourself. Don't let other people influence you, or don't let television shows influence you too much. A lot of these people are paid to say what product's the best, and the next year they're telling you a different product's the best. So, really just do your homework, do your own research, pick up a few different brands of broadheads, try them out, put them through your own test. Honestly, the John Lusk Archery Adventures, he tests every broadhead on the market, and he puts them on YouTube. It's a quite popular test that he does. His tests are very in depth and gives you a very unbiased opinion of how the broadheads perform. Watch the John Lusk videos when you're thinking about trying a broadhead.
But man, we really appreciate you coming on here, talking about your broadheads, and talking a little bit of arrow setups and bow hunting stuff, and just hunting in general.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and man, it's been fun. I always enjoy coming on talking broadheads and bow hunting. So